come from a South Asian background, so the first 17 years of my life were dedicated to ensuring success in one of three areas: medicine, law, and finance. My dad was a lawyer, so it was the perfect roadmap to follow. And I remember one day nervously walking into the kitchen to share my updated career plan with my parents. I said, "Mum, Dad, I'm not going to do law anymore. I'm going to become a personal trainer." Silence. They looked at one another and responded, "But this is crazy. How are you going to pay the bills in the future?" I sat nervously and I said, "I have no idea, but I'll make it work somehow." 15 years later, the fitness industry is booming, worth close to £100 billion and growing fast. However, obesity is growing even faster. Researchers expect nearly 50% of the Western population to be obese by the year 2030. So why is it that spending on fitness doesn't translate to solving the problem? In the UK, the NHS, obesity costs the NHS £6.5 billion a year. Healthcare systems are stretched. Doctors are overworked. And every single government since 1992 has declared obesity as a public threat to national health. And yet, despite countless policies, countless U-turns, nothing is changing. It's getting worse. And we have a big problem. And the people who have the biggest opportunity to help solve this are being kicked to the curb. They're undermined, they're not taken seriously, and they're not considered to be pursuing a real career path. But it's no surprise. The barrier to entry to becoming a personal trainer is a weekend course just about anyone can take. But a weekend, it's quite a long time. I've got a better option for you. One where you don't need to leave the comfort of your home. You don't even need to leave the comfort of your bed if you choose to. Online personal training. Every single one of you here could start selling online personal training services in the next 60 seconds. Change your email account or open a new email account, change your Instagram username, and you're off to the races. Let that sink in. And what's worse is there's no regulation. So it's no wonder that 15 years ago, my parents didn't think I could pay the bills. They didn't think it was a real career. The fitness industry is broken, and personal trainers are set up to fail. No systems for success, no accountability, and no career path. Change is required. So people who want to dedicate their lives to being a personal trainer can make a real difference. Because what if personal trainers hold the biggest potential to transforming our healthcare systems? It's time to rethink what a personal trainer is. The old personal trainer is the cheerleader at the gym shouting at you to do one more rep. I see the personal trainers of tomorrow being so much more. They're not rep counters, they're life changers. A few years ago, I received an inquiry from a man who was approaching his 50th birthday. He'd recently been given the news by his doctor that he was 5 years away from a fatal heart attack. At 120 kilos with a newborn son, he had all the impetus he needed to make a change. The problem was he was swimming in misinformation. Instagram influencer workouts, trendy fad diets, and quick fixes that promised the world. Until he discovered real results-driven personal training delivered by real professionals building real careers. 18 months later, he lost 50 kilos. He's now no longer got a health risk, and he's the energetic dad he always wanted to be. This is a perfect example of how personal training could be integrated into our society, working side by side with our doctors, making a real difference, and proactively easing the burden on our healthcare systems. The best bit about this transformation? It was all delivered online. Now just imagine if this was done at scale. Personal trainers hold more power than we think. They're not just life changers, but they're life savers and life extenders. If they're set up for success, they can impact society in ways that doctors would love to, but simply can't. 2 in 3 doctors in the UK, for example, are suffering from moral distress caused by how impossibly overstretched the NHS is. Doctors don't have the time, bandwidth, or the resources to do even more than they're doing, let alone hold their patients to account on the behaviors and lifestyle choices that they need to make. So I have an idea, and it's going to be a bit crazy, might be a bit of a leap, but bear with me. What if personal trainers became the first line of prevention? Rather than keeping personal training as a privileged luxury, what if we democratize their access and put them on the front line of prevention? It's no secret that personal training can be expensive. It's also no secret that our healthcare systems are already struggling with funding, so expecting a nice chunk of cash to be readily available isn't realistic. Right now, however, our healthcare systems are entirely reactive. A patient comes in with an emergency and it needs to be solved. But personal trainers can save billions just by preventing, or at least reducing, our obesity rates. Now, of course, obesity is a multifaceted problem. There's no one-size-fits-all. It's not simply a case of reducing junk food access or making obesity drugs widely available. These things may help in the short term, but here's the reality. Changing lifestyle habits requires diving deep into the psyche of our population. I'm a new parent with a beautiful young daughter, and I recently read that a child has a 50% chance of becoming obese if one parent is obese, and a child has an 80% chance of becoming obese if both parents are. These statistics are terrifying, especially when in the UK right now, 1 in 4 adults are considered obese, and a further 40% are considered overweight. It's going to take far, far more than simply personal willpower in order to solve this. We need a long-term, holistic approach that factors in socioeconomic disparity, environmental influences, and cultural norms. So I see 2 routes of action. The first is a private model through health insurance companies and corporate wellness programs. They could invest in wellness programs that include personal training packages as part of their preventative healthcare initiatives, and as a result, promoting well-being, but also reducing long-term healthcare costs. And it's win-win for both. I saw another interesting example recently in Japan. And in 2008, Western eating habits caused a rise in obesity in Japan. And as a result, they implemented a policy whereby they placed the responsibility of obesity onto Japanese employers. So once a year, all employees would undergo a health check, and anyone who'd gained a substantial amount of weight would be helped by their employer to reduce back to baseline. If not, they were fined. Now, I'm not suggesting this is the way we should go, but a sub 5% obesity rate in Japan is something we can learn from. The second is a public model, which tackles widespread affordability. What if governments partnered with personal trainers to offer subsidized personal training packages to target populations, such as low-income or senior individuals, or individuals with health conditions? And rather than relying on personal trainers being there in person, what if we leverage technology so that personal trainers can deliver this virtually and at scale? To take it a step further, what if personal trainers collaborated with schools to educate their children and their parents on practical steps to live healthier, fitter lives? There still remains a massive gap in our school curriculum. However, none of this would be possible without raising the barrier to entry. And in some cases, we actually need to create one. So what would a barrier to entry look like? Well, for starters, we could have a mandatory certification license built by a reputable, results-driven organization. And qualification could include something like a certain number of proven cases worked, proven body of case studies within a niche population, and an accountability to a code of ethics. No more simply changing your name on Instagram. The fitness industry is rapidly growing, and especially the online personal training sector, which, because of no regulation, is akin to the Wild Wild West. Trainers hold big responsibility. So let's not train them in only physical activity guidelines, but let's train them in nutrition, in lifestyle change, in behavior change, and in effective communication. And then, let's unleash them into every part of society. Gyms, workplaces, schools, and of course, our healthcare systems. This is where personal trainers can get on the front line of prevention, building respected careers they deserve, and most of all, making a difference in every single life that they touch. The personal training industry holds so much potential. If we rethink the role of a personal trainer, if we can change the perception of personal training, and if we can make personal training an integrated part of society, working in both the private and the public sector, working side by side as partners with our doctors and nurses on the front line, then we have a chance of fixing this health crisis. And if you're wondering, my parents are my biggest cheerleaders, constantly championing the power of personal training to everyone they know. And I hope maybe one day some of your children come up to you and share their dreams of becoming a personal trainer. And rather than wondering if it's a real career, you sit there and think, wow, you have one of the most important jobs in the world. Thank you.